System. Hang on. I nearly shit myself. I thought that had disappeared.
Oh, no.
Fractional reserve banking system, the inevitable. It's not Western society, it's society. Somebody's crashing it.
Alright, let's start from the beginning. Sit back. In that position, yeah, comfy. Alright, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Ian McPherson and
Finbar Hagan.
Great stuff. And we're here in Hyde Park and we're going to just have a conversation about what's going on in the world.
Or what's not going on in the world.
That might be the other thing, what's not going on in the world. And there's a lot of not going on in this world right now.
As the Chinese said, we live in interesting times. And that was a curse, by the way. It wasn't a blessing when the observation was made that we were living in an interesting time. But it's becoming more interesting when you actually start to understand that what we're living in here isn't a society. It's more like a prisoner of war camp. Or it's becoming visually so. A lot of people here in Hyde Park don't seem to realise that the government, which you can't call the British government because it's not British and it's not really a government, it's more of an economic system, didn't bring them here because it felt sorry for them. It brought them here as chattel, as economic migrants, because a lot of the people that were already living here weren't coping very much with the way the country was going, so they had to crash the nation state, bring about the corporate state, and here you have it.
It's really interesting. You know, a term I heard quite recently, which I thought kind of sums up what's kind of going on in the world, is the USA, for instance, is like the USA plantation.
It's a plantation. It always was. Russell Means done a presentation called Welcome to the Reservation. And it's only when you've lived in a prisoner of war camp or you've lived under martial law, which I did for some years in Northern Ireland, do you understand what you're dealing with. These people haven't really realised that there has been a corporate takeover. We're all part of the plantation, but it's just some people thought that there were better plantation workers than others, you know. And some even thought it was a colour thing, but it wasn't. It was never a colour thing, it was never a religious thing. The people that are operating these systems, and the word system translates in Latin as sewer, have been operating before we were born and across all civilizations. They're the same people that have always been. Was it they say the faces change but the arseholes don't, you know?
That's a good point. And it's quite interesting how we kind of met, you know. It's almost a coincidence, but as well as that, there's a bit of synchronicity going on as well. It was just kind of destined to be.
Well, as they said in V, when V was asked, I, like God, do not play dice, nor do I believe in coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence. First time something happens, it's usually coincidence. If it happens twice, it's happen chance. 3 times, it's enemy action. What we're looking at here in society is an enemy action. Something has declared a war on us, physically, mentally, and spiritually, that we weren't even aware. Because, like it said in The Matrix, it's a prison you can't see or smell or touch or feel. It's a perfect prison, you don't even know you're in it. You know?
I mean, a lot of people seem to be kind of getting clued up on that and aware to some sort of prison. I mean, a lot of people know, you know, of knowledge which points to that direction, but there's not a lot of people actually acting upon that kind of knowledge. I mean, they're still walking around with that information as opposed to doing something which is more proactive.
A lot of them are waking up for the wrong reasons. A lot of them are waking up now because they've had their kebabs taken from them, because they've had their gyro checks nipped, because they've been getting £15 taken off them every week now and their benefits. So it's only when it starts to affect them personally does it do they get up and do something? They're not doing it off their own backs. You know, they're doing it because the boot's on their neck now, you know. And as Orwell said, if you imagine a boot on your neck forever, that's what they've got, you know, in store for you, you know.
Yeah, it's really strange because, like I said, a lot of people walking around, just like we're here in Speaker's Corner. A lot of people come here every week and debate this and debate that, point at this person, point at that person. Some say this is a conspiracy, whether it's Diana or whether it's the government and stuff like that. I mean,
we've got to work out who the government is. The government for this country is the Bank of England, always has been. The Bank of England runs this country, not the bunch of what I call blackmailed bisexual paedophiles operating out of Westminster. That's not the government. Those guys couldn't govern anything apart from their next pay rise, you know. Remember, we got the best politicians in the world that money can buy, you know, and the best enemies as well, you know. These people are in the game of creating enemies. Problem, reaction, solution, Hegelian dialectics, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The word democracy, demos means mob, ocracy means rule. But better translated is dumbocracy. Because you got to be so dumb to think that Vox Populi, Vox Dei, the voice of the people being the voice of God, that you could vote in or out one of these people that are running the country. The people that run this country aren't the same people as you thought that you'd given on a list of agents to vote for. Remember how you know that they're lying? Their lips are all moving, you know?
it's like almost they've put this society in a state of borderline comfort, you know, and if you step out of line, they make it slightly uncomfortable for you.
Bob off you. Circuse et pane. Bread and circus, as the Romans called it. We're deep behind enemy lines here, brother. This is Rome. What you're looking at here is a Roman enclave. This is Laon d'On, the city of cities. You know, this is it's an outpost of the Roman Empire. This is where the orders are coming from. You have the Vatican City, is the spiritual power, London the financial power, and Washington DC with the military power. You know, but what they don't want you to understand is that there is a power above all theirs, a power far higher that they can't touch, they can't bomb, they can't put an economic sanction on, and they want to try and disconnect us, the human race, from that power. That power exists within, not without. They're looking for an external god to worship so that they can prostrate themselves in front of some, I don't know what, plastic dolls or whatever, you know. But they don't want you to understand that the Holy Spirit's within, not without, and it's not for sale either.
Yeah, yeah, that's indestructible, and it seems like the only way to destruct it is by destroying the person, divide and rule, and all I see is more divisions being created, whether it's via new languages or new things being created, new science. It's really interesting that people are quite willing to grasp new things while holding on to old things like religious beliefs. It's quite strange. It's almost a tearing apart of the soul in itself.
What you're experiencing here is a new priesthood that's being formed. It's actually it's the same priesthood, but it's taken on a new form. Well, the word pharmacist means pharmakai, which is a Greek word for sorcerer. You know, these people have been, you know, they've been messing with us since, like I say, before we existed even as a country. But there was a great song that went, the priest they stood on both sides, the priest they stood behind, and another fighting Jesus leads the blind against the blind. It's happening all over the world. Somebody's creating these Jesuses and these Mohammeds and these Buddhas, and they're creating, like you said, division. They're not conducive with human condition. They're not conducive with spiritual welfare. And once your spiritual welfare's become jeopardized, everything else falls apart. Your physical, your mental, you know, your economic. It's all built around your spiritual welfare and ability. Somebody's trying to take our natural ability from us, so they can control whatever it was that would have been left of us, you know.
Yeah, I've had many kind of revelations in life in terms of, you know, where I kind of refute a lot of ideologies and belief systems because of the fact maybe simply someone may die, you know, and they had no conclusion to what they were chasing, you know, and they just died. And, you know, did this person die in vain, or did he just die?
That's how you know who the good guys are. They're all dead or they're broke. That's a sign, you know. It's like, you know, you guys at the top, as like John Lennon said, there's room at the top there telling you still, but first you must learn how to smile as you kill, you know. And look what happened to that lovely boy from Liverpool, you know. Look at Jimi Hendrix, Bob Marley, Jim Morrison, you know. All, as like Bob said, how long will they kill our prophets while you stand aside and look, you know?
They killed, well, quite recently someone died. I think he was a very well-known hacker. He was a very well-known hacker, and he was going to reveal something in terms of how a person could be killed from 30 meters without
ELF
or something. I don't know what it was, but yeah, in that kind of terms. And before his talk, he died mysteriously, and he was only 35. A lot of 35-year-olds, 45 people are dying.
What about that guy on the UFO convention that was blowing stuff wide open? He died on stage. He got taken down. He just collapsed, died, and that was it, you know. It's like I say, back in Ireland, when we were blaming the IRA for the bombs that were going off and the shootings and the horrendous killings and punishments that were going on, and we couldn't work out, these people can't be human, you know. But we were blaming Catholics, and the Protestants were blaming the Catholics, and the Catholics were blaming the Protestants. And now we're finding out, after all these years, it wasn't the IRA that were blowing up old women in chip shops. The Oma bombing was not the Irish Republican Army. It was somebody pretending to be the Irish Republican Army. But every time we realised something was going on, one of our two men, there was John McMichael was one of the commanders in Northern Ireland, one of the UDA commanders, and there was another one, a UVF commander. Both of them had come to the realisation that something was going on that we weren't aware of from before, like that there could be a fifth column moving amongst all the Republican and Loyalist sections. They got killed. They got Billy Wright, that was the other guy's name, he was UVF. They were both murdered, and murdered by using military grade C4. That's how you know their signature. They're using military grade equipment and tactics.
It's almost like local kind of coups. In the same way they go abroad and destroy countries, wherever, if it's
Libya,
Afghanistan,
Iraq,
Africa.
Africa's in big trouble, man.
You know.
You think these guys that go to Africa with their little aid packages and their charities and they build the schools? That's the one way to screw any child up, is to send them to a school. And people are begging for school for some reason. They think it's a public full system, not a public school system. By the time they've left the second degree, which is secondary school, they're so dumbed down that they basically got to give them slip-on shoes because they can't tie their own shoelaces. You know.
Yeah, I could see that really happening. I mean, it's just like China went into Tanzania to help the Tanzanians, so they said. And basically, by the end of the whole contract, Tanzania was indebted to China because they didn't have, I think their economy kind of collapsed. And so the Chinese charged them by giving half the country electricity in the day, yeah, and the other half of the country will get electricity at night. So there will be power cuts frequently every day day and night, randomly. You don't know when it's going to happen. And, you know, this is the so-called help, what they bring in. And they're pillaging all the resources.
Same with the water as well. They're digging wells to give people clean water. Then they're giving them these electronic cards that charges them like $2 or whatever to get clean water, and people can't afford it. So then they start to rob each other. It's just all part of the same mechanism that we've realised that's been brought about here. Even the word economy translates as economy.
Well, what's the end goal of all this childish antics, which is quite violent and obvious? I mean, all what they're doing to us. I mean, what's the point? Just enslavement? Is that it?
Total control. And I'll tell you what they're looking for. They're looking for the perfect slave. They always have been. But it turns out the perfect slave isn't one that would do as he was told. It's one that would get somebody else to do what they were told. The people that make the best slaves are those that would make a slave of another man. The thing is, as well, with the slavery thing, it's like it was never abolished. They just took the chains off and sold them back to us in the form of a collar and a tie and cuffs.
Yeah, I saw a program on that regarding the slavery. Is that what the best slave is the slave who can look after himself,
or make a slave of someone else.
That too.
It's very strange. We're living in those strange days the Chinese promised us. And one day, I think it was Nostradamus said, a yellow race would rule the world. He wasn't talking about the Chinese, he was talking about cowards. Cowards would rule the world, because this is what's happening now. You see with the police forces, there's no such thing as a police force. The police service across the world, there's no such thing as a police force. Police forces don't exist. They exist by consent of the governed. We are the government, not the government. We have allowed these people to come up as far up the road as they've come. We've not held their feet to the fire. We've not reminded them that in this system we're Caesar, we're the supreme law of the land, not the corporate entities that are operating out of the Oxford Street, Dolce & Gabbana, Gucci, Carphone Warehouse, Sony. These people have to be reminded who really is in control. But the thing is, once you lose control of the collective society, that's when the corporate entity takes over. That's when it dictates,
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people don't understand corporations' motivations. We see them as a necessary evil in order for us to perpetuate in this world.
Well, the lesser of two evils is always going to be evil. So when you think, well, it's not as bad as the other one, it's like Genghis Khan versus Adolf Hitler, And the further you look back in time, the more you'll be able to see the future. So
what would the future be like?
It's exactly the same as it has been in the past. Just look back in time. Look back 50 years. Look back 100 years. Nothing's changed. We're still in World War I. There was no such thing as World War II. And World War I occurred 6,000 years ago. And we've been in that fight ever since,
Yeah, there's a lot of global wars going on right now, and America's stretched their resources to hell on earth.
There's no such thing as America. What you're talking about is the East India Trading Company. Yeah. A lot of people don't seem to understand that even the flag's the same except for the Union Jack in the collar in the corner. The East India Trading Company was never dissolved. It just morphed into America. America is a corporate state. It's got a president who's not sworn allegiance to the people. He's sworn an allegiance to the company. He's not what he seems.
Can you tell us a little bit about the straw man and the birth certificate?
A lot of people have been taken down this road where they've been given a little bit of information, which is very, very dangerous thing. Now they're using this common law thing and UCC. They're getting it all terribly mixed up. They think by standing on common law, that they can get out of paying their electric bill or their credit cards. And this is the whole reason why the whole thing was set up in the first place, was to deter that sort of person from operating. So they're as bad as the people that they're you know, nobody twisted any of our arms to go into a bank and open a bank.
They're saving pennies, really.
Saving pennies. You know, they're worried about their kebabs. It's like the ones that are doing marching because they're benefit cuts. Accept any benefit, reward or privilege from any form of government and you'll lose God's covenants. The hand that gives is above the hand that receives, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's either you're all in or you're all out. It's one of those situations, and I think, like I said, a lot of people like to be comfortable in this, you know, in this world and sit on the fence while.
Like Floyd said, I have become comfortably numb. Once you give up that survival instinct, it's game over. That's when they've got you. That's when they can start manipulating you. That's when they get you into the boob tube and you start watching the Tell-A-Lie Vision, Tell-A-Lie via Zion.
Programming.
It's not by accident that these words come about. You know, BBC, was it Bush and Blair Corporation? It was then, now it's Cameron. You know, I mean, you keep blaming Mr. Cameron or Mr. Bush or Mr. Blair or Mr. all these political misleaders. That is not the government. These guys are a front organisation for something so sinister that I think it was Woodrow Wilson said, when we speak these men's names we must do so with hushed tones, for their agents are, as they say, everywhere, you know. That's how you know who the good guys are. What happened to that nice boy? What was his name? The president of Kennedy. You know.
Yeah.
Went up against the reserve. Who else done this? There was Jesus Christ, Adolf Hitler, Abraham Lincoln, Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein. They all tried to come out of the banking system. They tried to come out of fractional reserve banking. They tried to come away from the usury state. Every one of them paid for it ultimately.
Yeah, I heard that term usury, and I've seen a documentary on it, and I mean, even down to some of the popes have even condemned.
Well, the last one, David Yallop wrote a great book on it. The Pope Must Die. 33 days he was Pope Paul. He was in office for. And they realised that this guy's going to give it all away, you know. Well, you can't have somebody like that. You can't have Maverick, but you don't get these people obtaining these offices by accident. The sort of people that are attracted to this form of office, to this high office, the very qualities that have attracted them to it should have been disqualifying them from it. You know, they're psychopaths. You got to know that they're psychopaths because their fruits, as they say, would be proof of who they were. By their fruits shall they be known, and by their fruits they've been condemned, you know. You look at that photograph of that cardinal with a gun, and he was doing arms trading. It just says it all, you know. The church has become, it's guilty of all sorts. I think it was one of its biggest blue chip portfolios is in the arms industry, you know.
Yeah, I mean, coming from a background of technology myself and from university, which kind of prepared you, and also gathered ideas for implementations of technologies into the real world. It's quite interesting to see where we are now and what I was studying then, and which some of them have been reoccurring and soon to be, you know, introduced to society, i.e. cashless society.
Microchip population.
Population as well.
Electronic currency.
Electronic currency is cashless society.
Once they turn that chip off, it's good night, Mr. Chips.
Well, a lot of problems which occur when you do have a cashless society. I mean, for the record, you know, they pose the problem that, well, because of the fact that, you know, it costs a lot to make and to destroy, and for our own good, it really does spreads a lot of diseases, which diseases are increasing. These are the ways they will coax us away from cash, and we're already quite used to using non-cash, but
Cards and whatever.
credit cards and
Cards.
pay by phone and so forth.
Once that goes over to, well, basically, it's not so much a cashless society, it's a system crash. They're trying to crash the system by depleting cash from it so that they can recreate it at the other end.
Well, the problem what I found when I was doing this project is that I found out that, well, if you are not credit worthy, you starve and you die and you become homeless immediately because there's no money, you cannot get into the system, and so you're forced into the system, like it or not. So
we're being herded, and it's an unseen hand that's always been at work, but now because of the advent of this technology, it's got a better grip on it. But we've also got a grip too, you know. We can use the technology, the same technology on them as they've been using on us. We just got to learn how to use it. The machine's getting smarter and so are we.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's the other thing is the counter technology
We're up against three things: the church, the mob, and the state.
Well, I could see how I could say the state can be countered by people mobilizing themselves together, and I could see with technology and stuff like that being countered by us just embracing technology and using technology for how it's meant to be used for the better of ourselves and the better of lives.
A lot of us are accusing the government or the world government or the state or the mob or the church of being evil, and in fact they probably think the same of us. You know what I mean? If you were to look at it from the global point of view, if somebody wasn't controlling society, if somebody wasn't putting the boot on our neck, do you know how many of us would be sitting here interviewing each other right now, as to the state of the union and as to the state of the world, you know?
The other thing I find with the fact that a lot of people are waking up and a lot of people are talking and stuff like that, a lot of academics, middle class or, you know, young...
It's sold down the road. It's not the fact that they bought the lie. It's not the fact that they were sold the lie, it's the fact that they bought the lie. You know, and now it's sticking in their gullet. Now they want to tell everybody else. You know, the academics are the very same ones that were holding the truth back all those years in the form of universities. Uni means single and verse means version. You know, that's why they give you doctorates, because you're so blatant indoctrinated that you're going to work for them for the rest of your pointless life.
The thing with democracy, to me, all democracy is another form, it's a reflection of bureaucracy.
It's a democracy.
And
we live under kleptocracy. We live in a kleptocracy ruled by thieves. So that would be a closer equation to it, you know.
With the academics learning as much as they are learning, tendencies that they argue and debate about this constantly rather than doing something. The doers are the people at the bottom, the workers, and the people at the top, who are the enforcers. The ones in the middle, the masses, they make the rules by joining some kind of democracy to talk, and it's full of bureaucracy, it's bureaucratic.
But remember, we don't get the vote in or out evil. Evil doesn't really care about your votes. Yeah. It's under the illusion, or we're under the illusion that we get to elect what they select. These people, like I said, they're a front organisation for something a lot more sinister, but it's coming out of the banking system. Ultimately, the real lords of the church are operating out of the city of London, not Westminster. They're operating out of Wall Street. Every great man and woman that's came up against them has paid the ultimate price. You know, you look throughout history at a lot of military leaders that like some of the generals, guys like Lawrence of Arabia, who realised he was working for the enemy and we were the enemy. They took him down as well. He supposedly died in a motorbike accident in Devon somewhere, you know.
It's the same story. I mean, anybody's trying to change.
Attention. Whistleblowers. We don't deserve brave men anyway because we've never backed them up.
What about that guy in America?
Which one?
The one who's running around the world trying to protect himself, who blew the whistle on the surveillance software.
I haven't even heard about that one.
Oh, this guy, he's been chased all over the world.
It's the same guy that done the whistle blowing on the Israeli nuclear program.
No, there's actually a software system. Oh God, I can't remember what it's called. But basically, what it is wiretapping everything that comes into America and goes out of America.
But the thing is, we have to relax because at the end of the day, we're not that important. There's bigger fish for them to fry than us, you know. And unless you actually represent a threat to them, they're not really going to take any notice of us because a lot of people get paranoid of surveillance now, you know. But remember, we're surveilling them as well, you know what I mean? It works two ways, you know.
I mean, there's constant surveillance. It's not like you can really go totally under the radar in this country, maybe somewhere else.
You can if you come away from electricity. If you go into the countryside, you're not going to be able to live there for very long because there's nothing growing in the countryside. You know, I live in the countryside and it's just like a green desert up there, you know. But you will be able to come away from the system, you know. Just pull out of the system, get out of the monetary system. I think if you get away from the television, get out of the banking system, stay away from schools, stay away from doctor surgeries, don't trust the police. You know, I mean, when did you think that, well, we've always subconsciously knew not to, but as individuals, but collectively people are starting to realise, hang on, the police aren't actually working for us. They seem to be working for somebody else that we weren't aware of in the form of a corporate state, you know. They're acting as mercenaries now, you know. That's why they're taking on as many goofballs now as they have, you know. I mean, what's happening with America, it's pretty sinister. You know, they're actually marching on Washington, you know, like an armed resistance. You know, the men that are trying to do that are getting taken down before they even hit the streets, you know.
Yeah, so I remember when the Black Panthers took on their right to embrace arms. As soon as they did that, they changed the laws regarding arms.
And what about the same person that suggested this bearing arms, as they say? What if a suggestion had have come from a CIA intelligence unit? Because we know that all these so-called resistance organizations, be it the UDA, the IRA, the Black Panthers, the Brotherhood, you know, the Islamic Brotherhood or whatever, they're all created by the same entities that are using them as a catch net.
Yes.
If you want to control an opposition, be there at the creation of it. Yes. Create it, and then bring them in. Yeah. You know, 7/7 was a classical example of it, where they recruited young patsies, pretended that they were in some sort of like intelligence unit, and then blew their asses up. I mean, even that day with that Peter Powers or whatever his name was, he admitted on live television that there was an exercise for the very same scenario going on that day. I mean, the statistical anomaly of how many to one shot it would have been, it's outside perception.
It's like totally in plain sight, right in front of your face, right under your nose, totally under your nose. I have the same thing with the Boston bombing situation. I've heard the young chap who was in custody was being prepped by the FBI.
Looking for a bogeyman.
Yeah, over a period of time.
The new bogeyman, it's not going to be a black guy or an Irish guy or it's not even going to be a Muslim. I think it's got to be a homegrown, as they call it, terrorist or tourist. It's got to be. I think they're going to go for the right wing next.
Yeah, well, they need to bring a new threat, and probably the new threat will be some racial war. That's quite a good division to.
That's the boogeyman, yeah, the race card, yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great division. You know.
Look what happened with that Oklahoma bomb, and everybody knows that it's not possible to blow up a federal building in that way by using fertilizer. You know, I mean, it's like it's stupidity's hidden in plain sight as well. You know, once you're traumatized enough times with this news, that these prostitutes, they're worse.
They really are trying to up the ante on the 9/11. You know, it's like, oh, how are we gonna top 9/11? And you know, and they're introducing all these disasters.
It looks like we've lost control of most of the people that are living in society now, because I think eventually you will become the food you eat. And the old saying is, it's the first time in human history where the poor have become fatter than the rich. You know?
It's a horrible time to live in some cases. In some cases. As well as that, it's the most exciting time to live in as well. There's so much change, there's so much opportunity. I think it's down to choice.
Opportunity to wake up. It's the first time in human history where we've had collectively, with the advent of the internet and YouTube and video cameras and camera phones, we've had a chance to see what they're really up to. You know, I mean, you look at that Occupy movement thing. You know, the way that the government and the police were behaving towards those. They weren't protests. There were citizens that are you know, standing up for their, you know, their country and their you know, their humanity, and they're being demonized, and then they're spraying them with pepper sprays and stuff. I personally would hunt the people down that were doing this. Look what happened with that M. Tomlinson fellow, and you know, with the way they're baiting the shit out of young girls and students. I don't want you to hurt them students anymore. They're not criminals, you know.
They're criminalizing society. Everybody in society is getting criminalized. Now they have a new law against people who smoke marijuana as well. If you're driving, they're gonna stop you.
Well, let me just remind them, whoever they are, right, that there is, and always will be, and always hopefully will be for your grandchildren as well, a group of men and women that'll make sure that whenever it does kick off, that, you know, you're talking about people that have been pissed off for a very long time. You know, you're talking about the British Army, the Navy, the Air Force, all the ex-veterans. They know what's going on, you know. They're seeing their country going down the tube. They're watching their children getting beaten up by goofballs that have got uniforms on and warrant cards. And we don't understand, you know, how we've allowed them to get as far up the road as they have. Remember, the Nazis were obeying the law when they were putting Jewish people into concentration camps and gassing gypsies, you know. And the people that were going onto the trains were obeying the law as well, you know.
We don't want anarchy. We just want right. We just want things to be right. Fair and right, and you know.
The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. There you go.
Thanks. That's a long conversation. Rock and roll. You want to talk about your outfit?
Nah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go down and wear it now.
All right, cool, man.
All right, rock and roll.
All right, let's. I don't know. Let's just cut it here.
Yeah. See, you're the same as me when you go traveling. You collect a religion.